You can live, you can laugh, you can love. Life with SuJay.
And good afternoon and welcome to Live with SuJay. You know, we're all the way live and in living color, and we're celebrating not only Black History Month and Women's History Month, we're just celebrating wonderful people. And so I am so glad to have with us today a family who is exceptional. So I used to grow up, I'm a boomer, so you know I'm a boomer, you know that by now. So I grew up with Leave It to Beaver and Andy Griffith and my three sons, the favorite black and white. But my whole life went into color when I met a man with three daughters and a wife who are all in ministry. So it is my delight to welcome you today to Live with SuJay, and we're welcoming the Francisco family. I met Pastor Natalie many years ago through Reverend CJ. And Reverend Natalie would come to Washington, D.C. from Virginia every week to help me start my lunchtime ministry in D.C. And I never forgot that. And then I invited myself to Thanksgiving, yes I did, at their table and met their wonderful daughters and her husband. So Bishop Francisco, Reverend Natalie, Dr. Natalie, and Reverend Leslie is now in the Black Women in Ministry Real Thrive Initiative. So Leslie, we're going to begin with you and ask you to introduce your parents to us officially and tell us why you're excited to be a part of the Black Women in Ministry program.
Okay, well, it is an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Dr. Leslie Francisco McClendon. I am the middle daughter of Bishop L.W. III and Dr. Natalie Francisco. They are my parents. They are amazing. I'm honored to have had the invitation from you to be a part of the BWIM, the Black Women in Ministry Initiative, where we are thriving and growing. And it's just an amazing time to be alive. And I'm excited to be a part of the program and to see all that's going to come out of it.
Well, we're so happy to have you. Now, Bishop, I want to talk to you because I've preached at your ministry, but you are married to a minister, have three daughters who are in ministry. It's really the house of Levi feminized. What was it like, first of all, to have your wife in ministry partnering with you? What was that like? And then to have your daughters, what's that been like for you?
Well, it's been an amazing journey. I think that early on, my wife was really a part of ministry. Prior to us being in ministry, just a little bit of history, I was in the construction business. I was building new homes and doing that work around the peninsula area.
Wow.
And also pastoring part-time. And God was calling me full-time, but I was resisting that call. And so I went to my wife one day and said, you know, God has really been laying on my heart to go full-time in ministry, but you know, if we do this, our lifestyle has to change. We won't have the same type of income and things are going to be different. And so I really put a heavy on her. I said, but if you don't feel like I need to do this, then you just say so and I won't do it. I'll keep on doing what I'm doing, making money. And I was really expecting her to say, well, no, you need to keep on taking care of the family. And her response to me, well, if God told you to do it, I support you 100%. So let's do ministry. It blew me away because I really was looking for an out, but I knew that God had called. But because of this amazing woman, here we are 37 years later in ministry, and God has taken us on an amazing journey. And it's been a partnership. It wasn't just Bishop, it was Bishop and Dr. Natalie together. So it's been great. And then with the daughters, that's another amazing story because all of our daughters, we never really forced them or coerced them into ministry, I should say. But as they saw the fruit manifesting and as they saw their mother and our lives coming together, they individually came to that decision that they wanted to be a part. And we're elated. I can't say how much my heart is so full of joy to see this happen.
I am so excited to hear it. And I've witnessed it firsthand. You don't only have fruits of your ministry, you have a whole cobbler. Y'all have so, you know, everything for me is a food analogy. You know that by now. But Dr. Natalie.
Yes, we can.
So Dr. Natalie, you've been under construction with this man for 37 years.
Yes.
Built together. Talk to us about what have you built together?
Oh my goodness. Well, as he said, we started off with Francisco Construction Company. And then as God would have it, we moved from building homes to actually building and transforming lives. So as a part of ministry, it's been our pleasure not only to serve as senior pastors prior to our daughters, I should say, coming on board, but we've been able to plant ministries outside of Hampton, Virginia as well. So we have churches not only in Virginia, but in Atlanta, Georgia, in Houston, Texas, and in Peter Maritzburg, South Africa. And Rocky Mount, North Carolina as well. So we're continuing to add to that. In addition, we've been able to partner together and hire staff. We've had a Bible college, a Christian academy. There have been numerous hats that God has allowed us to wear and to oversee all that He has given us.
And you've done it with such poise and pleasantness. You know, it hasn't gone to your head. You've always been great and gracious people, and I like that. So, Pastor Leslie, you are now the recipient. You are the part of the succession plan. And it's very rare, first of all, that there are succession plans in the Black church, but you are the daughter, the middle daughter, and you are the pastor. Tell us about where you're pastoring and what it feels like to receive this, to be the beneficiary of these blessings.
Absolutely. So I am pastoring at Calvary Community Church. We call it C3 for short, in Hampton, Virginia. And my story is very interesting because I received my call at a very early age, but my pastoral tenure started in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. And so it was a very interesting journey. My grandmother passed away in February of last year, and she lived with us since 1994, was very critical in a lot of our lives in this building, in this journey of legacy. So I like to tell people I'm a third generation succession case. So we are on the third generation. And I was supposed to have the pastoral installation May of 2020. We had all of these grand plans, and all of a sudden in March, the pandemic hits. And I'm so thankful for my parents as well, because that would have been a time to say, oh, wait a minute, we don't need a whole bunch of change. The pandemic just shifted everything. We're going to postpone you being the pastor for a couple more years because we need to stabilize the ship. But I'm so grateful for them that they trusted me enough to say, all right, well, we're going to go through with this. And all of this change is up in the air. So let's see how God leads through you and through our team. And they just trusted me with so much wisdom and grace, and let me even lead in my own style. And so that's what I appreciate most about them too, is that I do not have to be a carbon copy of who they are. I have their legacy and their foundation and their imprint, but they allow me to lead that through my own style. And so that has been one of the biggest blessings that I think.
Oh, that is a major blessing. So let's talk about your style. How would you describe your style? I've been there. I mean, it blows your mind. If you're from the old traditional thing, just stay home. So what is your style?
You know, what's interesting is I'm a hybrid. And even though being the middle child, I really do feel that I am a perfect balance of my mother and my father. My mother, both of my parents are highly educated, but my mom is a teacher. The diction is on point. She is going to be a thesaurus, and the history is going to be there. The context and everything is going to be there. And my father is very practical. He's a storyteller. And so I believe with my style, I have a combination of being practical, humorous, insightful, and I like to say cutting edge too. So I'm right there kind of in the middle. And it's just been a joy to, even for y'all to let me live that out, because I am sure there have been some Sundays where they're like, girl, if you don't reel this back in here.
I love it. So now I'm a spiritual daughter. They call me the first daughter of Union Baptist Church. You know, we're doing this grant in collaboration with the Union Baptist Church in Harlem. But I'm a spiritual daughter, meaning that there's no blood biology there. You are really a daughter. You're a daughter of the former pastors who you succeed, but you also grew up in the church. Do they respect your leadership?
You know what? They do. Now, some people, you know, I'm sure there was an adjustment period, but one of the things that I love about our succession plan was we had a 7-year succession plan.
Okay.
So we didn't come up and say, oh, you know, here's Leslie. We know she's the middle child, but she's the pastor now. What really started was I was youth pastor for several years. In 2010, around 2015, I, along with my husband, became the assistant pastor. And then, of course, 2020, we made the transition to me being senior pastor. So we took them alongside on the journey, so they weren't blindsided by any means. And so I think they really appreciated that too, to even be able to see the growth that happened. Because if we're honest, I grew up, I was the unassuming, the quirky one, the one who walked on her tippy toes, and they were like, Leslie's gonna be the one to get that church. Like, what's going on? But they could see the maturity that happened, you know, over a decade. And so to be brought along for that journey, I think people actually thank you for that too.
That's true.
That it wasn't so sudden.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to talk about the succession because it's amazing. We're going to come right back. I want you to stay with us. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up and share this. And you're watching Live with SuJay as we celebrate ministry, celebrate a family business, not the family business you see on some other networks, but this is the family of God business. And we are so excited. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hey, thank you for joining us. You know, COVID is a tough time and a lot of people are feeling the pressure of stress of life. But I have a book that I think will be a blessing to you. It's called Too Blessed to Be Stressed. And the subtitle is Words of Wisdom for Women on the Move, but it's also for men on the move. And it's scriptural steps to bouncing back from burnout. I encourage you to get it. It's still a bestseller some 10 years later. You can get it on Amazon or wherever books are sold online. But Too Blessed to Be Stressed. I want you to know you are too blessed to be stressed. And so please obtain a copy. I hope it will be a blessing to you. Thank you for joining us. You're watching Live with SuJay, and we're celebrating the Francisco family. And we are so delighted to have us. Today, we don't have the entire family, but we have three of the exciting ones. Bishop L.W. Francisco III, Dr. Natalie Francisco, and Pastor Leslie Francisco McClendon of the C3 Ministry in Hampton, Virginia. So let's talk about succession. You had a 7-year plan, and 7 is a biblical number of completion. How did it come up? Who came up with it? And then how did you execute it?
Dad, let's start with you, because one of the things that I think is so critical that you talk about was that pastors need time to realize that they're going to transition. You don't just wake up and say, okay, tomorrow I'm retiring. There's a thought process behind that. So can you kind of guide that?
Yeah, I think that it kind of dawned upon me after a period of time. I had gone through a season of just saying, God, you know, where am I in my journey with you in ministry? And as I began to reflect on it, I began to think about, you know, I really felt like, God, I'm not tired of ministry. I'm not burnt out, but I don't want to get tired of it. And I don't want to get burned out. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues in ministry who get to that stage in life where they are doing it because they feel like they have to do it and there's no one to pass it on to. And they just, they feel almost obligated, even though people in the pew know that, hey, it's time for you to retire and sit down. They just sense that they need to stay in the saddle. And I didn't want to get to that point in life. So I began to talk to my family and say to them, you know, I really feel like it's time that I make a transition. And the reality of that was, in the beginning, they said, oh, no, Dad, no, you're not serious. You can't do that. You can't. I said, well, yes, I can. I said,
Yes, I can.
we're going to create a plan. And that's where it all started. It started by me realizing that I did not want to die in the pulpit.
Yeah.
And
so Dr. Natalie, he casts a vision, but you have to catch it, and then the family has to commit to it. So what was it like? He wakes up, he's like, I need this plan. What do you do?
Well, we had been talking about it and preparing for it as well. And one of the things that we realized, especially with many pastors within our own African-American context, is that, you know, sometimes there is a lack of planning for our financial retirement, planning for succession within the church. And so those were things that we were doing as a family. And then, as Bishop said, as he had that conversation with God, then of course he had it with me. We called a family meeting with all of our daughters. And then, you know, talked about what that would look like. And they were taking notes and going through all of those. And then we involved, after that, of course, our team, our administrative executive team at our church. And so we began to roll out a plan. and began to work like that. And certainly, again, within the African American context, there aren't a lot of models that you can find or look at in terms of what does succession look like. And so we had to create our own.
Yes.
You may find that many times in the Anglican church, but again, within the African American context, there are a lot of preachers that say, you know, I'm going to preach until God calls me home.
Right.
And so you have to know what's right for you, what's right for your ministry. And for us, we wanted to be able to mentor not only our daughters, but give the team, and we even gave you permission as that 7-year rollout occurred to hire her own team around her, to surround her, so that, you know, we're not allowing them to just harbor or hoard the gifts that God has given them. We have to see those gifts and be able to put them to work where they can do the most good.
Well, to that point, though, I get your daily motivation. You write. You're a writer. You're prolific. Are you planning to write this succession plan so that others might in the future? It says, write the vision and make it plain. Would you share that with us?
That's in the works.
Okay, I think it's so important.
It's a team effort as well.
All right. You said there are hardly any African American. I don't know if there are any. So you have to be the one to trailblaze in that way. So Pastor Leslie, you have sisters who are in ministry with you too, biological sisters with you. What does that feel like? You are the pastor. How does that feel? How do you cooperate and motivate and collaborate together? Talk to us.
It's interesting, but we fight and we flourish at the same time.
I love it.
Oldest sister, Nicole, serves as our executive director, and my youngest sister serves as our director of outreach and communications. And I love, even when I think about us being made up as a tripartite being, you know, mind, body, and spirit, it's very interesting because my youngest sister, her background is in clinical psychology and mental health. And so she is so good at things with the mentality, with the mind. My older sister is just a business guru, and she has a master's in business administration, and her administration is second to none. And me, I have my background in theological studies. And so even the way that we're able to operate together and bring our giftings together and not compete, I think that's what's really set us apart, is that we really want to see each other win. And so what makes our union, I should say, so beautiful as sisters is I don't ever have to worry about Nicole or Lauren saying, well, I want to be the pastor. It's my turn to do this. And I'm never going to say, well, I want to be the administrator. I want to deal with the psychology of it all. And so we're able to really work together. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, without competition. And so we'll say this thing like, nobody has your back more than I have your back. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're always going to have at least 2 people in your corner. And that has really fortified us to win, I think.
Oh, I love it. Fortified. Oh my God, flourishing. Even sometimes you might fight. And I think that's so beautiful. We're going to take a break and come back on another beautiful note. Stay right with us, subscribe, give us a thumbs up and share it. We'll be right back. Thank you. Hey, Black Women in Ministry. It's an exciting time, Black History Month, and throughout the year, we're always going to be Black women in ministry. So I want to commend to you a book from Judson Press. It's called The Sister's Guide to Survive and Thrive in Ministry. Words of wisdom from my 40 plus years in Christian ministry. Lessons I learned, things that I wish I could have had coming along the way. It's a short read, but it's a powerful read. And it has a foreword by Bishop Vashti McKenzie. So I'd love for you to get a copy of it. It's called The Sister's Guide to Survive and Thrive in Ministry. And it's also a sponsor for today. So thank you, and I hope you get it, and I hope it will be a blessing to you. 3 sisters in ministry together, parents who are ministers. So it's a family. This is a love story. This is a flourishing story. This is a love story with one another, a love story with God. Pastor, Bishop, Dr. Natalie, how did you know Leslie? You know, I mean, we know the scripture, David in the field and the king comes and he looks at all the other brothers, but David is the one. How did you know it was Leslie?
That's a good question.
Well, I can say from a mother's point of view, Leslie, at the age of 3 years old, always said she wanted to be a preaching pastor.
Wow.
She never deviated from that. She had a tender heart. for people and certainly for God from childhood on. She was saved at a very early age. I can remember us, of course, as is part of what we do in ministry, having funerals, but I can remember her at, I think, not even 7 years old. Was it your grandmother's funeral? My mother?
Yeah, I was 4.
Yeah, she was 4 years old when my mother died. And at the funeral, she saw, of course, this was her aunt, my husband's mother's sister. And she went up to her at 4 years old and asked her, say what you said, do you remember?
Oh, I said, that's my grandmother laying up there. Her time is up and she knew the Lord. Is your time almost up? Do you know Jesus?
Wow. Wow.
She had
evangelist.
Yes. I mean, she started really early. And she's always had that tender heart, as I said before, and passion for God and compassion for people. Yes. She knew the schools she wanted to go to. Even when we were trying to, I'll say your dad was trying to convince you to stay local. She knew where she wanted to go. And she ended up going to Oral Roberts University. And then for her master's, she went to Regent. For her doctorate, she went to Duke. She's always known the path that she wanted to travel.
Yeah.
So, we were just, watching her and sensing from God that this was the avenue that was going to take place.
I love it. Bishop?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd like to just insert here is people often ask me the question, how did you get all 3 of your daughters to work in ministry? Mm-hmm. And I tell them all the time, it wasn't strategic, it wasn't planned, that wasn't our ultimate goal. Right. We did not know that they would do that. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think is paramount in this happening is my wife and I made a decision early in ministry to put our family first.
Yeah.
And my daughters knew that they could call me 24/7, that their games came first, they came first, whatever they were involved in came first. And so I could be in a business meeting or with a governor or whoever, and my phone would ring. And if it was my daughter or my wife, I would say, excuse me, I got to take this.
Yes.
And they knew that. And I think them seeing our hearts throughout the course of ministry, because my wife and I patterned that we wouldn't be different at church than we were at home.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they saw that. And I think that gave them the desire to want to be a part of it. Whereas I've heard a lot of preachers' children say, I can't wait to get out of this thing.
Yes, exactly.
We made sure that they understood that we didn't do ministry for ulterior motives. We literally did it because we had a heart for the people of God. Mm-hmm. And they picked up on that.
Yes. I think it was the ownership piece too, growing up. This isn't mommy and daddy's church. This is our church, So growing up, hey, how do we do it? We making budget? All this kind of, it was included. Like, we were in on the process. Yes. And even at the dinner table, I tell this story all the time. It wasn't, hey, we shake hands, we hug the parishioners, and then once we go home, we talk about them. It was how we are at church. We're going to be at home. So that way we don't have to try to remember, who are we supposed to be today?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So Bishop, now you have a daughter who's a pastor, 3 daughters who are in ministry, but a daughter who's a pastor who is now a mommy. Yeah. And now, did you walk her down the aisle and did you cry?
All of the above.
Yes.
I walked it down the aisle. I had one of our ministers to do the opening for the service. And I said this to them. I said, now I need you to do one thing. I said, when you do that section, who gives this bride to be married? I said, I need you to amend that. And I need you to say, I said, because I got too much invested to give her away. So when you say that part, I want you to say, who presents this bride to be?
Yes, I love it. I love it.
I did that with all my daughters. And but I did preside, but I did cry a teeny bit.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about even the importance of legacy too and how strong it is. I have to shout out my husband, Caleb McClendon. Mm-hmm. As I said earlier, we were both assistant pastors in 2015. In 2020, we thought for a while that we would be co-pastors. And I was sitting there and I said, Caleb, I really feel that God is calling me to be a senior pastor. I said, but if I'm being honest, I'm hiding behind you a little bit. And, I was a little scared. And so we were having a conversation and we said, if you go to a website and you see a man and a woman's picture together, who are they going to think is the pastor? The man, right? Because of embedded sexism or whatever. And so we were having a conversation and Caleb said, you know what? You are going to be the pastor of this church, whether you married me or not. And he said, I feel called by God to assist you in whatever way that you need. And I'm going to be your assistant pastor and you're going to be my pastor. And I knew at that point, like, wow.
Right. No, call his name. That's powerful. Yeah. That doesn't happen hardly ever. So God bless you. God bless you. One last thought. I wish when COVID's over, I'm going to come and sit in that living room on a stool right beside you. Just give me 6 feet. But it feels so comfortable. And this was the perfect way to do this today. One last thought, would you say about family, ministry? What would you say to others who are hoping that someday they'll have something similar?
Yeah.
Well, I would just say to always be authentically yourself and to teach your children to do that as well. I believe it's incumbent upon parents rather, to not push their children in a certain direction, but to have eyes and ears to see and hear what it is that God has planted in their hearts. And discern, that's a very powerful word, but it is needed to really discern the gifts that they have and to assist them in using those gifts. One of the things I believe that we've shared with all of our daughters is to be authentically yourselves and to bring all that you are and all that God has gifted you to do to the table. And that means that every gift complements one another. It's completion rather than competition.
Bishop, what would you say to men? Are there more men like yourself? Because, you know, there are a lot of single ladies who don't have a ring on it at all, but they want a Christian, godly man. What would you say to the brothers?
I think it's important that men recognize that this is not a win or lose battle, that we become co-laborers together. And I attribute, the success of our ministry, of our family, to the partnership with my wife. Had she not been in my life, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And I think we have to start looking at our spouse as a compliment and as an asset versus somebody that we're competing with and recognizing gifts. We recognize that early on in our relationship that when we first got married, I was used to my mother doing things a certain way. She was used to her family doing things a certain way. But we had to quickly come to the place where we recognize, what are your strengths? Yes. What are my weaknesses? Exactly. What are my strengths? What are your weaknesses?
Yes.
You can do that early on and accept that. It makes a tremendous difference in how you move forward. So I am a pastor, a father, a husband, a pilot, a preacher, a papa, a grandfather, yes. All of those things. And my wife added to that. She didn't take away from that. And I wasn't intimidated by her gifts. And I want to say that to men ttday. See the value in your spouse or potential spouse and don't be intimidated by it. She has giftings in areas that I'll never be able to master. But likewise, I can do a couple of things.
Oh, a lot.
but we come together versus competing. So
Pastor Leslie, we're about to wrap up, and we're so delighted to have you in the Real Black Women in Ministry Thrive Initiative. You are just a joy to be with, and certainly your family is a joy. You are the recipient of great legacy. What's the legacy you're hoping to leave?
You know what? When I think about legacy sometimes too, I preach this, and this is one of my messages, to say, I'm glad I'm not the first. And I think that's even being a part of BWIM, right? The point of legacy is to pass it on. And when we talk about Black women in ministry, we even talk about what is our R word, right? Yes. And when I thought about it, I said, mine is repaving, because they have already laid the foundation. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they say, I've got to build, I've got to build, I've got to build. And my question is, if so many people are concerned with building, who's sustaining? And so I don't want to plow up I want to lay on top of the foundation that has already been made and repave it. And so I want those who are recipients of legacy not to let people make you feel bad because the people before you did their job, you know? And so that's really what I feel called to do, is to build upon the foundation that has been given and laid to me, and to do it with integrity and innovation.
Amen.
Ooh, that's a good word to move on. I'm saying you should switch spaces with me right now. Well, my R word is rejoicing. I am rejoicing because I've been with the Francisco family, not just today, but many days. And I love who you are and what you have done and who you are contributing to for this next generation. And we want to thank you. I'm rejoicing because you have stayed with us for an exciting, wonderful Live with SuJay. Thank you for joining us. Until we meet again, God bless you and God bless America.